Hello and welcome to my visit to the Great Central Railway's Bus and Train Spectacular. Held at the GCR's Quorn Station Yard on Saturday the 30th of September 2023, this was a joint venture between the railway and the Leicester Transport Heritage Trust. Over 50 buses were on display and many of them were used in service during the day. I got there nice and early, which was great because we were able to watch some of the static display buses shunt into position. It's always nice to see several examples from the same fleet, and the trio sporting Leicester City Transport's maroon and cream livery were possibly the best of a very good bunch. First to reverse into position is bus number 329, a six-wheel 1939 AEC renown with Northern Counties bodywork in a 64-seat configuration. Next to her we have bus number 164, a 1958 Willowbrook-bodied Leyland Titan PD3. You saw a sister bus, number 163, in the opening shots of this video sporting Park Royal bodywork and the reversed cream and maroon livery introduced in the 60s. Last in the lineup is bus number 154. This one is a Titan PD2, introduced to service in December 1950. This 62-seat bus worked hard for 20 years and was one of the last PD2s to be withdrawn. There was a brief distraction from the bus activity with the arrival of British Railways Standard 5, hauling the 1007 service to Leicester North. 73156 was a member of a class numbering 172 locomotives, yet she's one of only 9 that were built at Doncaster Works. She entered service in 1956 and served only 11 years working for British Railways. In November 1967, as steam was being abolished, she was retired to the seaside, spending 18 long and silent years decaying at Wood & Brothers scrapyard on Barry Island. Rescued in 1986, she was slowly restored over the next 31 years and finally entered service in October 2017, joining a preserved fleet of 5 other examples in her class. After the sharp bark of 73156 had faded away, I had chance for a quick nip inside the marquee for a wander around the stalls. After a few minutes of gentle browsing, I discovered this little beauty, a Daimler Fleetline in South Yorkshire Passenger Transport Executive colours that I remember from my youth, a must-have for the model railway. After grabbing a second breakfast from the butty stall, I went up to the platform to await the arrival of the 10:35 departure for the Mountsorrel Branch line. This is a journey I'd not done before, so this trip up the line was one of the main reasons for attending the event. As it was the first working of the day, it wasn't too busy, and the beautifully restored interior offered a choice of comfy seating. We departed on time and headed along the main line in a cloud of acrid-smelling diesel smoke. I much prefer the scented tang of the steam locomotive, but having been breathing in the fumes of the buses for the last hour, my lungs had started to get used to it. We quickly rattled up the line, heading for the Swiveland sidings. And on arrival, we took the freight loop off the main running line and drew to a stop outside the signal box. These sidings were built to allow the exchange of mineral wagons from the Mountsorrel Railway, a short network of industrial metals built to serve the granite quarries in the area. After the driver and crew changed ends, they picked up the single line token from the signalman and we started steadily away round the tight right-hand curve that took us away from the main line. Unlike the gently graded mainline railway, the branch line climbs at 1 in 62, and the tight curves force the driver to stick to a cautious 10-mile-an-hour speed limit for the majority of the run. To our right, open fields drift past, whilst on the left-hand side the permanent way is edged by a shallow embankment. After less than a mile, we approached the single platform of Nunkley Hill Station, the home of the Mountsorrel and Rothley Community Heritage Centre. Sited in the basin of what used to be a granite quarry, the attractions include a small railway museum, restored mineral wagons, a narrow gauge railway and a 45mm garden layout. On departing, there's a very narrow arched overbridge which limits both the loading gauge and speed, and then we climb the last quarter mile or so up to Mountsorrel. As we were the first trip of the day, and possibly even the first for a couple of weeks, some foliage had blown onto the line, so our gallant crew had to clear it before we could make it into the station. But make it into the station we duly did, meeting some passengers who had travelled by heritage bus to do a circular trip. Rather than get the bus back to Quorn, I opted to stay on the rails, knowing that the next trip up the line was the single-coach Derby lightweight railcar with just 69 seats, as opposed to our current two-car combination with 117, so I surmised that spaces might be more limited. So after disembarking passengers and enjoying a short photo opportunity, the guard reversed the lamps, the driver and crew changed driving cabs, and we set off down the hill once again. As we approached the junction with the main line, we passed the obligatory distance signal and then stopped for the home. The driver telephoned the bobby from the line-side phone, and he pulled off the signal by the time our driver had clambered back into his cab. Onto the mainline goods loop, pausing only at the box to hand back the token, and we ground over the complex point work and onto the mainline once again. Then it was straight into Rothley, reverse the multiple unit and head back at normal line speed back to Quorn. In order to loop back into the platform for the next shuttle to Mountsorrel, we passed through platform 2 without stopping and reversed on the crossover at the other side of the road bridge. Here we can see the ground signal for the crossover change in our favour, and as soon as the crew were at the right end again, we trundled steadily into platform 1 of Quorn and Woodhouse, completing the loop. Back to the buses, and here is FNV 557, a Whitsun-bodied Leyland Tiger PS2. She entered service in 1949 for Northamptonshire-based independent bus company Royal Blue. Next up, we have Beatrice, a 1980-built Bristol VR Series 3. Originally delivered in NBC green, just like my school bus back in the day, these days she's sporting this vibrant Midland Fox livery, something she's only worn in preservation. During my school days of the mid-80s, we were lucky enough to get an occasional brand new Leyland Olympian on our school service. Again, ours were in National Bus Green and garaged at Worksop Depot in North Nottinghamshire, rather than this Midland Red example, but both had bodywork by Eastern Coachworks, so they do look the same. Back on the railway, a Class 50 thunders into Platform 2 on a service to Loughborough Central. Meanwhile, drawing up to Platform 1, we see 73156 again on the opposing service to Leicester North. Is there anything that sounds better than a two-cylinder steam locomotive starting away? So time for my heritage bus journey to Mountsorrel, and our ride is bus number 5919. Built in 1968 by its original operator, the Birmingham and Midland Motor Omnibus Company, this is their final iteration of their single-decker, the S23.
Alright, passengers from Mountsorrel, please.
The BMMO built their own engines as well, and in this case they mid-mounted a 10.5 litre and coupled it up to an SCG 4-speed semi-automatic gearbox. She has seating for 51, but empty she's quite light on her feet, weighing in at less than 7 tonnes. The drive up to Mountsorrel station took about 15 minutes, and we arrived just before the railcar that we'd seen in the platform at Quorn when we departed. The Derby lightweights were developed around the same time as the Class 101 that we rode in earlier, and like the other early multiple units, they were normally in 2, 3 or 4 car sets. The Iris is a very rare single car unit, one of only 2 single units built. Brought into service in 1956, she worked for only 11 years before being transferred to departmental stock as a test vehicle and given the name Iris. She remained as a test vehicle until 1999, where she entered preservation and was restored to her original working formation. Well, that's it. There was lots to see, far more than shown on this video. In fact, possibly too much really for a single day event. But another excellent rally at the GCR, and my first trip up the branch line. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.